Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. I am not sure we have ever seen anything like what happened today at the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. It is quite possibly one of the most unhinged trial days that I have ever watched. Lori Vallow Daybell is on trial for conspiring to murder her husband, Charles Vallow. And she managed to do something that I still can't believe. She managed to suggest in front of the jury, to the jury, that the police maybe should have looked closer at her as a suspect in Charles's death instead of her brother, Alex, who is deceased. Now, everyone has assumed that her brother, Alex, did the crime. I mean, he admitted it. And he told police exactly what had happened. And Lori told police Alex did it. And Lori's daughter, Tylee, told police that Alex did it. So everybody was really sure about this. And then today, Lori herself started tossing in details that could make her the suspect, could make her look guilty. Why? I have absolutely no idea. It was wild, and you're going to see it for yourself. But that was just kind of the beginning of the crazy for the day. It wasn't even probably the craziest part, because then Lori Vallow Daybell stood up to cross-examine the woman who went out with Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, the night before he was killed. That woman, Nancy Jo Hancock, met Charles on an LDS, Church of the Latter-day Saints, dating app while Charles and Lori were separated. And Nancy Jo and Charles had been talking for a week, and they met in person the night before Charles was shot. So Nancy Jo was probably the last person to see Charles Vallow alive, if you don't count, of course, Alex and Lori. So picture this, okay? Lori Vallow, accused of conspiring to murder her husband, standing in court and questioning the woman her husband went on a date with the night before he was murdered, while still married to Lori. And thus far, I acknowledge the murder has not been proven. Right now, she's only charged without being convicted of conspiring to murder Charles. So, mind you, Lori was having an affair. And we saw the text messages in the cases from Idaho that we covered, where she was accused and convicted of murdering her own children to be with the man she was having an affair with, Chad Daybell. But Lori was extremely upset about Nancy Jo in the courtroom today. I mean, you could feel it in her tone, in her questions. To Lori, Nancy Jo was more than just a witness. She was the other woman. And speaking of questions, they were all over the place today. Objection after objection was sustained, and just about everyone. It was super messy, super tense, and an absolutely fascinating day at trial today. We are breaking it all down tonight. I am so glad you're here. Special shout out to the first 5 in the chat: Michelle B., Camilla Juliana, Oklahoma Gigi, CT Annie, and Desert Rose. I do want to say a special shout out to 2 people whose super chats I missed last night. Zero Patience has been a member for 9 months. Thank you. And Everything Farley wanted to know when Lori would go into a super religious rant. We may talk a little bit about the religious stuff tomorrow, because that came into play for the last hour of the day. I couldn't get to that to cover it today, so we will cover that tomorrow. So thank you very much for your super chat and your question. All right, so let's get started right away. There were, as I said, tons of objections from the state to Lori's questions. Lori is representing herself. It's a decision, a choice that is just not even, no one fathoms it. I have no idea what she was thinking. But in any event, she is on her own here, and virtually every objection was sustained. Let's take a listen.
Someone very muscular like my husband were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat?
She is asking this to a member of law enforcement.
Can I object to speculation, relevance?
Your Honor, I'm asking for his opinion as a professional and as a firearms expert.
He's not, okay.
That goes to the ultimate
hold on.
decision.
The objection is sustained and it calls for a legal conclusion.
It calls for a legal conclusion?
Yes, move on.
Were you present Detective, when my husband was shot?
No, ma'am.
Sorry.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay, let's stop right there because let's talk about what's happening here. This man is supposed to be an expert in the firearms and the trajectory of the bullet, the two bullets that were shot at Charles Vallow, the two bullets that killed him. And she's asking a question: if someone were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat? That is not what he's an expert in. Just because he's an expert doesn't mean you can ask him any question on earth. You can only ask him a question within his expertise. And so the reason why there's an objection here is she's off on a tangent talking about something entirely different. And she's also talking about the fact that he wasn't present when her husband was shot. And, the judge is saying, what's happening here? There's an objection. She says, I'm going somewhere with this. I am sure the judge is thinking, after having watched everything before it, I really doubt that that's true. But here we go.
Were you present, Detective, when my husband was shot?
No, ma'am.
So she
Is there a
wasn't
video
going anywhere.
recording of it?
To my knowledge, no.
So is your opinion then an educated guess about what really happened?
It's based on known facts.
So my guess is she probably heard attorneys say that, I'm going to connect it up, Your Honor, or I'm getting to it, Your Honor. I'm just one question away. So she says that, but she wasn't really going anywhere with that question. When an attorney says that, what they are supposed to mean is, I am one question away from something you will clearly and plainly see as relevant. This question might not seem to be, but it's just the beginning question. I'll ask this one, and then when I ask the next one, you will see that they connect up. And so that's what she's suggesting, but then she doesn't actually take it anywhere. That's not just a set of magic words that convinces the judge to let things in that otherwise aren't relevant.
Okay. Were you aware, Detective, that my husband and my brother were very good friends?
No, ma'am, I didn't know the relationship.
Did you know that they hung out and played golf together?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm going somewhere with this.
Oh, I
My
guess,
follow-up question will explain.
I guess you can answer if you knew that they played golf.
I did not know.
In all of your investigation of my life, you never came across this information?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with my husband's wishes for his funeral?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you learn in your investigation that he named my brother Alex as one of his 5 best friends?
And I'm going to object again to relevance.
Sustained.
I think what Lori is trying to suggest is that Alex Cox would never have killed Charles Vallow because they were good friends. And in fact, Charles had named Alex as one of the people he wanted to be a pallbearer at his funeral. That's just my guess based on the questioning. But the way she's asking about it and the person she's asking, it's all wrong. This person has no personal knowledge of any of that. And just because he investigated Lori doesn't mean that he came up with and found that information. And now she's going to suggest maybe she should be a suspect. Well, I hope she will.
Are you aware if Alex's hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
There would have been no reason to swab for gunshot residue.
Why is that?
He had already stated that he was the shooter.
He had stated it?
To my knowledge, that's how the information was provided to me.
Okay. Are you aware if my hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Okay. Are you aware if my daughter's hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Do you know for a fact that Alex shot the gun in question?
Based on the information provided.
Give it just a second.
Are you aware if my hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Okay. Are you aware if my daughter's hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Do you know for a fact that Alex shot the gun in question?
Based on the information provided, that is what I have, yes.
Do you know that for a fact?
Just with the information that's been provided, I can't tell you one way or another if there's another shooter because the evidence does not show that there was.
Okay. So all you really know for sure, after your 5 years of investigation, is that my husband was shot 2 times, 1 by that particular gun, 2 with those particular bullets, at my residence, and that he passed away as a result of that. Would that be correct?
Oversimplified, there is a lot more information that is available to us for that.
Is that correct? Is that question correct?
Those are some known facts, yes, but that is not all we know.
So you can't really tell me for sure who shot him, can you?
You'll hear that twice. Sorry. I'll scoot a little.
And what the evidence shows.
Okay. You don't really know what time he was shot, do you?
Let's stop there for a minute. So what the answer was I can only go with the facts of what people have said and what the evidence shows. So think about what Lori just did there. Because the only people in that home, and she established, what facts they knew were that Charles Vallow was shot in her home, that he was killed by 2 bullets shot in her home from the gun they found at the scene. And the only people there who could have done that would be Alex, Lori, and Tylee. But up until now, it was pretty clear that Alex was the person who shot it. She has now introduced 2 additional suspects, Tylee and Lori. Those are the 2 she's now introduced. She suggested it. Did you swab my hands? And you don't know who shot that gun. Well, there were only 3 people there. There's no suggestion that anyone else was there, that someone else came in the house. So this is actually suggesting that Lori herself might be a suspect in shooting her own husband, Charles. And she now tries to prove a couple more of the prosecution points.
Actually, no, I don't.
She's asked him, you don't know what time he was shot, do you? And he says, well, no, I don't. And that's going to be important. I'll explain why.
You know if he was falling back or lying supine on the floor, do you?
Yes, I do.
You don't really know what time my husband actually passed away, do you?
No, ma'am, I don't.
So the prosecution says that the reason they don't know those answers is that Lori Vallow Daybell and Alex Cox waited to call 911 because they wanted to make sure that Charles was dead. And then, so in other words, Charles might well have died earlier. The prosecution isn't arguing with that. They pointed out that there was already lividity on his body by the time law enforcement and the EMTs arrived. He had been dead for some period of time. They didn't state how long, but they're perfectly willing and have been trying to prove that actually Charles was killed earlier. Their whole point being that Lori Vallow Daybell wanted to make sure he was dead. She didn't do anything to help him. She didn't call for help right away. She didn't ask for EMTs to show up. She didn't want him resuscitated. What she wanted was to have her husband dead. And that's the point the state is making. And Lori helped with it right there. Now, next, you are going to see what I think was the highlight of the day. The woman dating Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, that she had known him a week and met him on a dating app. She said they talked for hours, that they were super compatible. And she actually met him in person and went out with him the night before he showed up at Lori's house early the next morning to take JJ to school. And he told her he was getting, Charles Vallow told this woman, Nancy Jo, that he was getting divorced. And that actually does make sense given what Lori had been doing. She had left the family for several months and gone to Hawaii. Then she had come back to Texas, but taken JJ and Tylee and moved from where Charles was living to Arizona again. So they were separated. They weren't in any way together. They weren't living together. In fact, when Charles came to Arizona to pick up JJ and to see JJ, Lori told him that she would not even let him stay in her house because he didn't get along with Tylee and he wasn't even allowed to stay there. So they very much were not together. They were not divorced, but they also were not together. So what he was saying may well have made sense. But the whole situation was just unhinged. And we're going to start with the judge gave Lori a little lesson about what a leading question is.
And just sort of yes or no, did Charles talk to you about
Your Honor.
why?
Lori's objecting.
Objection.
I haven't heard the question yet. Go ahead.
So just yes or no, did Charles talk to you about why he
Leading
was
is yes or no.
No, leading is a question that suggests the answer, so she can answer yes or no.
So again, just yes or no, did Charles talk to you about why he was separated from his wife?
Yes.
Based upon your discussions, how long did you think there had been issues going on between Charles and his wife?
For several months.
So Lori's understanding of a leading question was one where the witness was asked to answer yes or no, which is the opposite of the leading question. The leading question is the one that tells the jury here or tells the witness what the answer is going to be. So the judge had to come in and go, no, that's incorrect. But he is trying to help her by explaining exactly what it is as they're going through, because this has got to be difficult for him as well. It's difficult for the prosecutor. It is not, when one person in the courtroom really doesn't understand the rules, it makes it much more difficult for everyone participating. So Lori then moves into cross-examination of Nancy Jo, the person who went on the date with her husband, Charles, the night before Charles was killed. And we'll see how she starts out. Give it a second. Let me just say, Descript has this new thing where they no longer show you the parts where you are where somebody isn't talking, so it makes it harder to cut this stuff out. But here's Lori.
Joe, right?
Correct.
And we have not met before,
We have
correct?
not.
Okay. And you stated that your
Is this
husband,
awkward or
my
what?
husband told you that he was going through a divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you have any way to verify that?
No, I didn't try to verify that.
Okay. So did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
Oh my gosh. What she just said, Lori said, we weren't in the process of divorce. And the woman's like, well, Charles was, just so you know. This whole situation is just really terrible. And frankly, gives me a lot of question about whether people should be allowed to represent themselves. This whole situation is just terrible. It's so awkward for the witness, but this was a direct answer to Lori's question. Charles was in the process of getting a divorce, whether you were or not. And certainly Lori's behavior was that she was doing everything to move out of the marriage. You can certainly see where he would have thought that. So Lori's response is to begin to testify herself and to begin to make statements for herself.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced.
Okay.
So on the website that you met him, did he say he was divorced?
I'm not certain.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men? Naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Okay.
Okay. So in your text messages, you asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Is that correct?
Maybe, sure.
Did he answer that text message?
I'm
gonna
sure,
object to
I'm sure he did.
relevance. Again, 611 harassment.
I'll sustain the objection for relevance. And hearsay.
I don't think I've ever seen a cringier moment than what we are witnessing right here with Lori Vallow Daybell asking the woman who was going on a date with her husband if she had asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Just all of this is unbelievable. And you went on a date with a married man. Just the fact that it's coming straight from Lori is just cringe. It is really, really upsetting just to watch this because it doesn't seem dignified and it doesn't seem appropriate for a courtroom. As far as what the witness is saying, she clearly believed that Charles was near separated, but Lori does have a point. He was not separated yet. He was still married to her, and she's not arguing that that was incorrect. Here's Lori's response.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband and he told you all the details of our lives?
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me.
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
And the mic dropped right there when she said, "Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you." On direct examination from the state, this witness had given lots of details about Lori, about JJ, about Charles, and sort of the family, the history that was going on. Frankly, she got into very little of that on direct examination. There could have been a lot more. I am sure that Charles told her the same thing he told the police, which is that he felt his wife was having a mental crisis, that she was having a mental health breakdown of some type and needed intervention. I'm sure he told her that. He told the police that. We haven't heard that in this trial, and that didn't come in on direct examination. But those are the kinds of details she would have. And at this point, it's been kept out. The jury hasn't been allowed to talk, hasn't been allowed to hear that yet. But this here, you've got Lori asking the witness, so you talked about me. She's focused on what was said about her and what was said, and she really wants the details, it sounds like, about what exactly was said about her. And the witness is frankly protecting Lori in a sense by not spilling all the details that she probably knows. They almost get to the point where they're about to, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So, but the don't flatter yourself across every one of the live streams I watched, don't flatter yourself. Wow. Just wow. That was just a serious comeback by the witness, and just it's a moment you don't see in trial. We'll just say that. We'll just stop with that. All right. Kristen Perry has been a member for 2 months, and she is absolutely right. It was a crazy day in that courtroom today. Becky is asking about some of the legal elements about conspiracy to commit murder and accessory to murder. Becky, we covered that in a previous live stream. So rather than stop our flow, if you wouldn't mind checking that, and maybe we can cover it again short in another live stream. Dr. Wheezy J, thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate that very much. Courage, also super sticker. I'll stop there and come back and get the others in just a minute. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. So don't flatter yourself. The highlighted words of the day. Let's keep going with what the witness has to say. Or the cross.
You knew a lot about me, right?
I knew what I've testified to.
What else did you talk about on your date?
Lots of things.
Like what, for instance?
I mean, does this have anything to
Life.
do with Lori Vallow Daybell's possible murder of Charles Vallow? Or do you just get the impression that Lori would like to know the answer? What did you talk about on your date with my husband? That's what Lori wants to know. It's not that Lori Vallow Daybell actually believes this is going to help the jury decide the case, help the jury decide whether she conspired to murder Charles Vallow. And that's the only point of any question that should be coming in.
Kids, the church, lots of things.
Okay. Did he tell you about anything about our other 4 children?
Yes,
So you knew that we did have 5 children as well?
I did.
Okay. Did he talk to you about my daughter Tylee?
He did.
Did he talk about his relationship with her?
I don't recall that.
Did he talk about the contention in his relationship with my daughter Tylee?
I don't recall that.
I'm sure you don't.
And I'm going to object to comments by the defendant made after questions testifying.
We'll sustain the objection.
This was a problem that happened over and over and over again. And the judge spoke to Lori about it yesterday as the day was ending. He spoke to her about it at least 2 and possibly more times today, probably 3 times today. With what's happening is, and I'll show you some of those tomorrow. I pulled out some of the excerpts, but this was so just, you had to see this. You had to see this particular examination. So I couldn't fit it all into one show. So we'll cover that tomorrow night. But the judge has been telling her, you can't go and make a statement after you ask the witness something. So you can't say to the witness, what color is the sky? And they say blue. And you say, like she said here, oh, you would say that, wouldn't you? You can't do that. You can't comment on what the witness's answer was. And you can't testify after the witness. You can't say, well, that's not true. You know that's not true. I know that's not true. You can't add anything. The witness's answer is the witness's answer. That's what the evidence is. Remember the caution that the judges always give right before the jury goes out, that everything the lawyer said is not evidence. The evidence is what you heard from the witnesses. It's the documents. It's not what you've heard from the judge. That might be the law, but it wouldn't be evidence. And it's not what you've heard from the attorneys. So when she's asking questions, she can't put in evidence. That's not a vehicle to just throw in her opinion about the case. She's not allowed to do that. And the judge warned her about that over and over again.
He did tell me that he changed the beneficiary of his life insurance policy at dinner.
Did he tell you how much his life insurance policy was for?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
$1 million.
Did he tell you how much my life insurance policy was for?
I do not recall.
You don't recall?
We didn't talk about you very much in that vein.
So again, Lori would like to get in the fact, she mentioned it, I believe it was an opening, that there were apparently 2 life insurance policies, Charles's for $1 million and Lori's for $2 million. She seems to believe that this fact would be helpful for her. I guess her argument is that if she had a big insurance policy, then it wasn't something she created, some fact she wanted, that Charles had a big one. She didn't get him a big insurance policy so she could murder him and get the money. It was what Charles wanted, but she isn't really able to get that in. She hasn't really found a vehicle to get that in evidence yet. So, and now you're about to see yet another body blow from the witness.
When did you talk to him about me very much then? If it wasn't at dinner, was it in your text messages?
We were talking about what he was going through in the process of separating from you, not about what your life insurance policy was worth. And we talked about you on the phone, and when I say you, meaning what he was doing as he was going through this separation.
So let me understand. You were dating some different men on this website, right? from the websites.
Sure.
Would you say it was common for men to be talking so much about their supposed ex-wives during their conversations with a potential?
It's actually very common,
Really?
really.
Interesting.
See, right there, there's a perfect example of that. There is absolutely no reason for that commentary, but you'll hear the judge will address it.
And again, Your Honor, I'm
All right.
going to object to the defendant making comments after her questions. and
I'm
move
sorry,
to
Your
strike.
Honor. I won't do that again.
All right, please stop.
I'll
the
just
comment.
ask the questions.
Thank you.
But her comment, she just couldn't stop herself. It's very common, says the witness, that men talk about their ex, and she says supposed ex-wives, says Lori, during their conversations. The witness says, yeah, actually, that's pretty common. Really, says Lori. Really, says the witness. Interesting, says Lori. All of that being commentary that she finds that shocking and hard to believe that men would do that on a date, that they would talk about their ex-wife. And Lori knows, she immediately knows that she's not supposed to be doing this because she says, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I won't do that again. She volunteers that before he even rules on it because she knows she's not supposed to be doing that. So she then starts asking the witness about the text messages. She goes into a bunch of detail about text messages that were made between the witness and Charles Vallow after dinner before the next morning when, of course, Charles was killed.
So there were some text messages between you and my husband after the dinner on July 10th. Is that correct?
Correct.
What time would those text messages have occurred?
After dinner,
What time?
10:45-ish.
10:45 to what?
I'm not certain, ma'am. After dinner.
10:45 to midnight, maybe?
I just told you I don't know. Maybe.
What did you discuss in those text messages?
And I'm going to object to relevance again. If there's a specific area.
Sustained.
So I left that in because I was really curious. What is the specific area that the prosecutor is talking about? The prosecutor objects and says, okay, in these text messages, these are not relevant, and I'm going to object to the specific area. There's a specific area. I was curious. I don't know what that was about. We didn't get an explanation. The judge just sustained it.
You testified a minute ago that Charles told you a lot of things about his wife. You didn't say ex-wife, but you said wife. Is that correct?
Okay, sure.
What were a lot of things?
The things that I've testified to.
Can you be more specific?
Am I allowed to do a narrative then?
Let's go on sidebar.
Okay, so just at this point, I was sitting there, please let her do a narrative. Yes, I want to hear the narrative. I want to know, what is she going to say as this narrative? And so the judge ends up having this discussion. They had trouble with the earphones. They actually send the jury out. I wanted so much to know the answer to that. What the judge says to Lori, and you'll see it in just a minute, is, and I think I'll stop it right there because I'll just pull that out. We have 2 videos to watch tonight. So I will pull that one out. When he says to her, are you sure that you want the witness to answer that question? Because you're opening up a really big door. And Lori says, well, how else will I know the answer to that question? And so at that point, the judge is like, well, look, I'm going to let it in if you want it in. And the prosecutor doesn't object. Prosecutor, I don't object. And then, but unfortunately, wisdom prevailed over the course of lunch. I assume that the advisory council talked to Lori and they said, do not Do not leave that open-ended question there. And when we came back after lunch, there was a different question on the table, and she never went back to that. So we never got the narrative of everything Charles had said about Lori Vallow. I can only imagine how interesting that would have been. But now let's move on to what happened in the afternoon.
Have you ever spoken to my brother, Adam?
And well, let me do a little preface because I'm throwing you kind of right in the middle here. She started with some pretty ineffective cross-examination about the witness having reached out to Kay Woodcock. Kay Woodcock is the sister of Charles Vallow. She's the one who went looking for JJ. She's the one who kind of started the ball rolling. And it was apparent from the questions that Lori asked throughout the day that Kay Woodcock, in Lori's mind, is evil incarnate, and that she was especially appalled that this witness had reached out to Kay Woodcock, of all people. I don't think the jury is going to pay any attention to that at all. Kay Woodcock is not in any way evil incarnate. I don't think the jury's going to buy that. Lori did make a few points about the state not having requested messages from this witness, not having turned those over. But it wasn't really clear if the state was even supposed to do that, or if the state ever needed to do that. Were they required to do that? So it was a little bit of a point, but it didn't really go anywhere to develop the case. This next thing that happened was very, very strange, though. You will see this doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. Lori starts asking the witness about what the witness knows about Lori's living brother, Adam Cox. Now, the brother who actually shot Charles Vallow, the husband, Alex Cox died a matter of months after Charles Vallow was killed. Now, but she has a surviving brother, Adam Cox. He was actually on our show several months ago, maybe a year ago. And so here are the questions that came out.
Yes, but only because I ran into him at my grandson's pickleball tournament the other day.
So the question was, have you ever spoken to my brother, Adam? And she's saying, because yes, at a pickleball tournament the other day.
And how did you know that was him?
Because I've seen him on media via the situation surrounding you.
So you initiated a conversation with him?
I just said hi, and he asked me who my grandson was, and I pointed it out, and that was the end of it.
So you introduced yourself to him? To my brother?
I don't know that I introduced myself, but maybe.
How would he know who you were?
I don't know that he knew who I was. I knew who he was.
So you went up and talked to him?
I did talk with him, yes.
He didn't call you over, so you went up and talked to him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you were talking to him, you told him you were who?
I told him that my name was Nancy Jo Hancock.
And did he recognize that name from something?
Long pause here.
Can I go back and change how I met your brother? I forgot this until right now. So on a dating app, your brother's picture came up on my dating app. And I sent him a message and said, but he had a different name that he used, not Adam. And so I just sent him a message and said if he was going to use someone else's pictures, he should probably pick someone different than Adam Cox. That's how I met him.
That's how you met my brother, Adam?
Correct.
Do you know what perjury is?
Absolutely.
I object, Your Honor, to
Question.
argumentative harassment.
Argumentative.
How long was this?
Okay, so that whole exchange, I just thought that was bizarre. On Lori's side, going straight to perjury, when it was just way too threatening, way over the top. And you saw the judge slap that down. But also the whole change of answer was sort of bizarre too. It was hard to why was there this change? What was that about? And it also didn't really make a lot of sense, the new answer, because she said she saw Adam Cox's picture and the person was using a different name. And then she said that the person should probably pick someone different than Adam, I guess making a joke that Adam didn't look that good, which I don't know. I just found the whole thing really, really confusing. I just ended it with, I don't know what, it made me feel less like I trusted the witness than I had before, but mostly just confused. I wasn't disbelieving the witness. I just didn't understand that at all. I thought it was a really weird discussion back and forth.
Conversation that you had with my brother at the pickleball tournament.
A couple of minutes, maybe less.
And how many times had you communicated with him before that?
Only that message on that dating app. Besides that,
One message, one time?
I don't remember. I think he messaged me back, and it didn't continue.
So just the one day then? Maybe several messages in one day?
I might have sent him one other message, but it was just one interaction, and there was nothing further.
And
So the witness knew other people too. The witness even knew about Brandon Boudreaux. Brandon Boudreaux was shot at, and the next case Lori's involved in, she's going to be charged in connection with the shooting at Brandon Boudreaux. But Brandon Boudreaux survived. So that one is not a murder case.
you did not schedule a date with him?
I did not. He attends the same church that my daughter does, and he happened to be at their house briefly.
She's
and
talking about Brandon
I didn't really
Boudreaux.
speak to him. I just knew that that's who he was
And how did you know who he was?
because my daughter told me.
And who did she say he was
Brandon Boudreaux.
in relation to me?
She knows the story, and I know the story, so she just had to tell me that his name was Brandon Boudreaux.
That he was married to my niece? Is that the information that you had?
I know that he was married to your niece, yes.
Okay. Just the association is all I was asking.
And well, she might say that because that was a pretty close call, because the witness could have said, well, that wasn't the only thing that I knew about him was that he was married to your niece. I also knew that someone shot at him. I also knew that someone tried to kill him and that it was suspected to be your brother, Alex Cox. She didn't say any of that. I don't know what would have happened if she had, but Lori opened that door wide. It could have come in at that point. It was really good that Lori slammed the door on that, because I don't know exactly what it would have done for the trial if that had suddenly come plopping out in the middle of trial. And I assume the judge has kept it out. She has not been convicted of anything in Brandon Boudreaux's case. That's coming next. So there was also a lot of time wasting stuff. We talked about this yesterday with Lori, that a lot of what she was doing seemed like a waste of time, and that which law enforcement officer interviewed this witness, for how long did they interview, just things like that that really weren't very important.
Ms. Hancock, were you aware at the time of your date that I did not know that my husband was on dating websites and dating women?
Objection, speculation.
Were you informed by him that I knew of the situation of us being separated?
He was under the impression you were having an affair, so him moving on was a natural effect from that.
He told you that?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So
that was, she's now going to move into some kind of decent cross-examination of the witness, pointing out that the witness really only knew Charles for a week. And she sure knew a lot of information about Lori for having known Charles for only a week. But the witness said they had talked for hours and hours.
would it be fair to say that you knew my husband for a week?
Approximately.
Okay. And then you had no contact with Charles after that, correct?
Well, he was dead, so clearly I didn't have contact with him.
Okay. And it wasn't until you saw that he had passed away on the news that you reached out to anyone, is that correct?
Correct? I didn't know he was dead.
So at the
It's really a pretty sad story. Look at that.
Thought I would
mean,
probably be
really pretty sad story, because what happened was the witness just thought that he ghosted her. And actually, he had become a ghost is what the problem was. Not that he ghosted her, but she thought that they had had this fantastic week of getting to know each other, a wonderful date. They talked and talked. It was a real connection, and nothing. She texted him, she called him, and he just didn't respond. She just figured, well, I'm going to respect what he wants to do. He doesn't want to continue the relationship. That's his right. And I'm just going to let it go. She did manage to very much humanize Charles. I'm going to try to figure out exactly where I was before I accidentally hit the button. Let's see.
Ms. Hancock, were you aware at the time of your date that I did not know that my husband was on dating websites and dating
further.
women? Is that correct?
Correct? I didn't know he was dead.
So at the 5 months later that you said in December, after that is when you contacted Kay Woodcock?
To express my condolences for her brother passing away, and wanted to let her know that I had had dinner with him that last night and how much he loved JJ and how excited he was to see him the next morning. And just
Thank you. That's enough.
Did you reach out to
She
the
doesn't want any more humanization of Charles Vallow coming in. She'd like to stop that right there. That was plenty. Say no more nice about Charles Vallow. She'd like to keep it out. She did manage to cast a little doubt on the investigation by the police. Actually, the state did that in the redirect examination. You'll hear it now.
police, or did the police reach out to you after you learned Charles was?
I reached out to the police. I was surprised, given that if they'd seen his phone, they would see the text communication that we had had, and that we had been at dinner that night before he died.
I should say.
I believe, no, I thought I would probably be interviewed again, and it was more an ask-answer format. There was, I remember being surprised that I wasn't interviewed again.
Okay. Because Charles had shared so much with you.
Correct.
So that casts a little bit of doubt on whether or not the investigation was thorough enough, but I don't think she had information that clearly showed a connection. And compared to the witness who came next, she was only minimally connecting Lori Vallow to the murder of Charles Vallow. But one thing she was crystal clear on, and it was very important to the case for the state, is that Charles wanted a divorce.
What was your impression of where this relationship was between Charles and Lori Vallow when you and Charles started talking?
Well, I knew that they had separated and that they had reconciled, and I knew he had filed, and then he had recanted that. But he also had met with an attorney to begin the process again, and was very emphatic that he was done with all the craziness.
Have you,
So the jury also,
to my brother Adam,
stop that and pull it out. Okay. So the jury also gets to ask questions in this case, and they asked one here. One of the jurors wanted to know, did Charles seem nervous on your date the night before? And the witness said yes, and she started to answer why. Would have been really interesting to have known why. Was Charles saying, I'm afraid for my life? She kind of insinuated that a couple of times, but maybe he was saying he was afraid that Lori was threatening him, that he thought she was crazy, that he was scared to be around her. We don't really know the answer, because what happened was the judge stopped her and said, probably best to leave that to a yes or no. The jury's question was, did Charles seem nervous? And he gave Lori the opportunity to do follow-up. He didn't ask the prosecutor, at least that I could hear. He asked Lori, and Lori just said, no, I don't have any follow-up on that. Now, the last witness of the day, wild and bizarre. You are going to have to tune in tomorrow for that. We'll be covering that and the rest of the day. So I'll take some questions now. Let me start with what people have put over here in the super chat, because I have not gotten to all of those. And if you have a question, if you would put question marks at the beginning, that will help me get to it. Okay, so I think where I last spoke, I have not, Ada Shaw, thank you so much. Do I think Nancy Jo has got to be the best witness of the day or trial thus far? I thought she was very powerful, unbelievably powerful. Although the witness afterwards, maybe even more, I don't know. The reason I thought she was so poised, she had real zinger comebacks for Lori, and just the whole situation was so strange. She had a lot of poise to be able to get up there and answer questions and just deal with it. Very impressive as a person. That was my impression. I know that I thanked Dr. Weezy J and Karaj, and I saved Lita's question. Why would Tylee's interview by police not be allowed in trial? Is that a set standard, even if her testimony can contradict Lori's interview with police? Well, the reason it isn't being allowed is because it's hearsay, because Tylee is not available to testify about those facts. So her interview can't be a substitution for her being present. So ironically, Lori Vallow Daybell has been convicted of murdering Tylee, and now Tylee can't come to trial to testify to assist Lori Vallow Daybell in defending herself in this case. The things that the things that Tylee told the police would in general have been helpful to Lori because she supported the story. There could be some critical contradictions, don't get me wrong, but there were, for the most part, those were things that would help. You had, for example, Tylee said that she brought the baseball bat out. She said that Charles grabbed it from her, that everybody tried to protect Tylee. And from there, things sort of devolved, that she wasn't actually present at the time of the shooting. So those things could have been really helpful to Lori, but because Lori has now been fully convicted of murdering Tylee won't be here. I did a video on that called, I think, Tylee's Revenge. So be sure to check that out because that is a really interesting point. Rita, super sticker, I think I said thank you. And Mildred as well, I'm pretty sure I said thank you to Mildred. And I know I just said hi to Ada Shaw. Presley is a new member, welcome. And Buffy, she meant it was not really Adam, but Adam's photo. So, okay, so someone else was using Adam's photo. So maybe she didn't meet Adam Cox then. Maybe she meant someone else who was using Adam Cox's photo. So I don't know. I found the whole thing very confusing. I didn't understand that at all. I didn't know whether it was helpful or harmful to believing the witness. I just couldn't figure it out. Okay, so Kelly, welcome to Court of Massachusetts. Choose Facts says, I've read acquittal can occur if different conspiracy is proven. Could her offering maybe she shot CVB in an effort to get acquitted due to the wrong charge? So sometimes there could be an issue around that, but in this particular case, I think she still conspired with her brother Alex, according to what the state intends to prove in terms of the idea that they talked to each other about this in advance. So I think she could still be even if she was the shooter, I think she could still be probably charged on conspiracy to murder. If she probably could have been, if she actually did the shooting, charged and convicted on both murder and conspiracy to murder. So I don't think it'll help her here. I don't know. I really do think she wasn't sort of thinking through what this would mean because it seemed crazy. Mama Pink's also, it was Adam's photo and he used a different name. So how did she know it was Adam? Maybe it's someone using Adam's photo. I'm just very confused. I remain confused on that, but I do appreciate everybody trying. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Hey, gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Did Lori imply that someone else shot Charles? I felt like she did. I felt like she asked some questions around that. Did you check my fingernails for gunshot residue? Did you check Tylee's fingernails? So all you got is that there was a gun there in my home and he was shot in my home. That's it. And the witness said, I've got more facts than that, but those were all true. I thought the implication was, well, gosh, maybe they should have looked harder at Lori. Maybe Lori was a shooter, or maybe Tylee was a shooter. It was a very bizarre set of facts to introduce. I can't imagine why she did that, but anyway, that's my thought on that. So I'm looking for question marks at the beginning, and that'll be my indication that you have a question. I need to go to the bottom. I bet she blames Tylee, says gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Well, she has for every single other thing, so that would certainly make sense. All right, I'm going to go back up a ways and see if I can find some question marks at the beginning. I think I should have marked it where I was before. So sorry about that. All right. I'm going to start with Artsy Lady. Why isn't what Charles said not hearsay? Well, the things related to Charles are not hearsay. He is in this particular case, the victim. And because he, in this particular case, was not making most of the comments that they're putting in from Charles are not related to any of the things that the state is trying to prove related to the crime. So for the things that they put in are not problematic. And so there haven't been any direct statements. And that's why I think that the witness wasn't allowed to say, Charles told me that Lori was crazy. Charles told me that Lori needed mental health help. None of those things have come in. And I think that's because the judge probably ruled them out as hearsay. So that would be how I'm thinking. Tracy, what would happen if the jury asked why Tylee can't be at trial? I don't know if they can. They're supposed to ask questions about, about what a given witness says. So I don't think that they could just ask in general, hey, we were wondering, what about these other witnesses who didn't show up? I'm not familiar with how Arizona deals with the questions, but that's kind of my guess, is that they won't be allowed to do that. Fiverr, do you think Lori is creating reasonable doubt in the jurors? No, no. Not at all. That is my thought. Not whatsoever. Amazing Lynn, let's say, and technically, let me go back and say that technically she doesn't have to. Technically, it's the state's job to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But I think it would be helpful for Lori to be able to bring facts that would suggest they haven't done that. But I don't think she's making any headway on that at all. None. Teresa the Troll. Why is Lori allowed to continue harassing the witness? Isn't there a limit to this? Or is it up to the witness to say, I've had enough? Well, the prosecutor did object at least a couple of times on the grounds that the witness was being harassed. Each time the judge sustained the objection, usually on other grounds, not on harassment, and asked Lori to move on from that question. So I think that they did make some effort to protect the witness, and the witness did pretty well on her own. So they may have felt like they didn't need to do much more than that. Marilyn wants to know, is Lori setting Tylee up as Charles' murderer? That did occur to me. Why didn't you swab Tylee's fingernails? Maybe, but boy, that would be something hard. I mean, first of all, she would definitely have to get on the stand, and she would have to explain on the stand under cross-examination why they had said that more than once, that she told the police Alex shot him. Alex told the police Alex shot him. Tylee told the police Alex shot him. She has to explain, yeah, we were all incorrect. We were all lying because we wanted to get Tylee. We wanted to keep Tylee and protect her. And then I think that would then open the door to, well, that's not the only thing you blame Tylee for, because in fact, you blame Tylee for the murder of JJ, haven't you? So I think it would be really hard to change at this stage because they headed down in a certain direction. It would be difficult to change that. So I don't think the jury can ask, where's Tylee? There may be a point in time when there's a mention that she's deceased, and the judge said at a hearing that he would be looking at giving the jury instructions or information that Lori had 2 prior convictions, which was interesting because she has 3. She has a conviction, well, really more than that, but she has conviction for murder of JJ, murder of Tylee, and murder of conspiracy to murder Tammy Daybell. And then she has some other lesser charges as well. So I don't know which 2 he was picking out of that. And there hasn't been any more that I've heard in open court about that. So I don't know where exactly the judge stands on that. Do you also wonder if she will cross-examine Kay or Adam? I think she will. She 100% will, because there's no one else. She is acting as her attorney. There's no one else to stand in and do that. She did elect not to cross-examine the last witness of the day. I have a friend in the courtroom, and the friend wrote me and said that she believed that Lori was crying at the testimony of the last witness. We will cover that tomorrow. So you need to absolutely 100% be here tomorrow. We will talk about that. And Let me see if there's anybody else I need to thank of here. Oh, there are some people. I don't want to leave anybody out. That would be very bad. Where was I? With gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Nani Ann, thank you. I appreciate the super chat very much. Chicken Head wants to know that she keeps bringing Tylee's name up, yet the jury can't ask, where is Tylee? Well, they may just feel like she didn't come. She isn't available. She's busy. It's there. Every single fact doesn't have to be explained to the jury. And so the judge may answer that, but may not answer that either. So I don't know if you're absolutely right. For one thing, if all of you are noticing this, you know the jury is asking, where is Tylee? Why isn't Tylee here? And when they get to the end and Tylee never appears at any point, they're going to really wonder. All right, Chicken Head. So really happy Papa Lee is home. Me too. So glad to have him home, and he is enjoying being in his own chair in his own home. It's so much better. Okay, Amanda D says the cryptic answers make me worried the jurors are going to look it up. The mention of media. What do you think? I don't know. I think usually jurors try really hard to maintain the instructions that the judge gives them, and the judge is telling them, don't go out and research, don't look at anything, don't go on your phones and try to find out anything about this case. It's your job as a juror to look at what's right here in front of you in the courtroom, not anything else around it. So for that reason, I think that they won't. I may be being optimistic, but that's what I think. Thank you so much, Sparkling Jules. I appreciate it very much. I will see you all in our next video.